and I'll do it in the interest of the country.
Not our finest hour, the PM apologises for the leadership shambles. Gordon Brown offers his full support, but he too has questions about the future. But a Sky poll of Labour chairman confirms the Chancellor as the overwhelming favourite to take over. We'll have all the latest live from Downing Street and right around the country. A very good evening. You're watching Sky News. Our top story tonight, not our finest hour. Tony Blair's rather understated response to this week's events when he finally broke his silence over the leadership crisis. The Prime Minister confirmed what everyone here at Westminster already knew, that he would stand down within a year. But his continuing refusal to name a date for his departure has done little to dampen speculation surrounding his future. Sky's Lawrence Lee reports.
A week ago, the Prime Minister was giving the message that his MPs should stop obsessing about his departure date. Who said a week's a long time in politics?
As for my timing and date of departure, I would have preferred to do this in my own way, but as has been pretty obvious from what many of my cabinet colleagues have said earlier in the week. The next party conference in a couple of weeks will be my last party conference as party leader. Next TUC next week will be my last TUC, probably to the relief of both of us. But I'm not going to set a precise date now. I don't think that's right. I will do that at a future date, and I'll do it in the interest of the country and depending on the circumstances of the time. Now, that doesn't in any way take away from the fact it's my last conference, but I think the precise timetable has to be left up to me and to be done in a proper way.
He'd gone to a school in North London to talk about education policy, though some of the children outside were reminding him of why he'd had to change the script. Still, this is not a man to cave into a bunch of MPs who before this few people had ever heard of.
I think it's important for the Labour Party to understand, and I think the majority of people in the party do understand, that it's the public that comes first and it's the country that matters, and we can't treat the public as irrelevant bystanders in a subject as important as who is their Prime Minister. So we should just bear that in mind in the way that we conduct ourselves in the time to come.
The other man to have said nothing in recent days also turned up on TV. Gordon Brown getting in a few minutes ahead of Mr. Blair. The whiff of choreography made it look like a deal had been done, even though Mr. Brown seemed to admit his own frustration at their lack of togetherness.
We're in a unique situation in our country where the Prime Minister has said, as he has said on a number of occasions, that he does not want to lead our party and our government into the next general election. And of course, as a result of that, there are questions about what happens in the time to come. And it's right to say that I, like others, have had questions myself. But I want to make it absolutely clear today that when I met the Prime Minister yesterday, I said to him, as I've said on many occasions to him, and I repeat today, that it is for him to make the decision. I said also to him, and I make clear again today, that I will support him in the decisions he makes, that this cannot and should not be about private arrangements, but what is in the best interests of our party, and most of all, the best interests of our country. And I will support him in doing exactly that.
Yet, the frenzy hadn't gone. The reaction from some that nothing much had really changed. Opinions seem to not have shifted since the morning.
Well, I think it's time it went. I think that's the truth of the matter. This isn't going to go away. Politicians aren't going to start behaving like saints. The debate and the discussion about what happens next is going to continue, and the only way to cauterise that is to have a leadership election, and the sooner the leadership election happens, the better it will be for the Labour Party and for the country.
I think that the majority of Labour MPs will appreciate what the Prime Minister and Gordon Brown have said, but I also think that the focus on looking at the interests of the country as well as the interests of our party is very important indeed. I have no doubt that there will occasionally be difficult times, but this is politics after all.
So Mr. Blair left, waiting to see what the morning headlines have to say. If he wants to go out with the crowds begging for more, it'll need to be different to this. The thing is, this doesn't really feel like it's over because the lack of a firm date makes it still feel like a bit of a mess, the potential for many MPs to feel a bit dissatisfied or cheated. If this is now the transition of power, then stable or orderly are really not words you'd use to describe it. The bookies, who rarely get this kind of thing wrong, have certainly made their minds up already. The public at large, meanwhile, may be forgiven for wishing this could just all be over. Lawrence Lee, Sky News, Westminster.
Sky's political editor Adam Bolton is in Downing Street this evening. Evening, Adam. The Prime Minister made it pretty clear that he was doing this under duress, really. He said he would have liked to have done it his own way, in the words of the old song.
Yes, there's no doubt Mr. Blair has given quite a lot of ground recently. He, of course, originally was talking about serving a full third term. Now, potentially that could have been 5 years long. He's going to go at the maximum at just over 2 years, so he's given up 3 years. Only a week ago, he was saying that people shouldn't obsess about leadership and he wasn't going to make any further comments. Now he's made a firm comment, boxing himself in, maximum another 12 months. This is Mr. Blair's last year. At the same time, what appears to have happened for the time being, at any rate, is that the open rebellion yesterday, the push against him, the attempted coup by Brownites, has stalled. And of course, Mr. Blair now has the public statement of the Chancellor that he can go in his own time. So rebellions in Mr. Brown's name or in support of Mr. Brown's cause will be a lot more difficult.
Did you get the feeling that everybody in the party was relieved that this had started to come out into the open today, or that there was still an amount of frustration left at the end of it all?
Well, I think there is frustration. We heard from Graham and Stringer in the report, who simply thinks Mr. Blair should go now. There are a substantial number of MPs, including those who resigned from the government yesterday, who do think he should go, and I doubt very much that they will resile from that opinion. But then there have been some people in the party who felt for a very long time that Mr. Blair should go, although, as I say, they remain a minority, and the majority probably know that divisions, very obvious infighting between Blair and Brown, are the most damaging thing with the public. I mean, something unique has happened today in the whole history of the Blair-Brown relationship, going all the way back to when Tony Blair became leader after John Smith's death. For the first time ever, we have a deal. We have a publicly stated deal that neither man can back away from on the outline for a transition of power. And in a sense, after all the infighting, that must be a relief for almost everyone in the Labour Party to actually know in black and white, publicly stated terms, what those arrangements for an orderly transition now are.
But I've had a whole parade of ministers and MPs coming through saying, oh, we'll just better get back to business now and get on with the next year. Is it really that simple? Is the air cleared completely?
No, it's not that simple. We don't know. We don't have a date, as we've been reporting, and there are some who hope that Mr. Blair will decide to stand down sooner rather than later. I certainly think in the new year, if opinion polls haven't improved in Wales and Scotland, we'll see a renewed clamour from MPs asking Mr. Blair to go in the interests of the party. Some still believe that he could go as early as May, having signalled his intention to go in February. My own feeling is that he probably is playing to pass that 10th anniversary at the beginning of May. But he does face a challenge. He's got to use his speeches this autumn to TUC and to Labour to convince not just the Labour Party but the public that he has something constructive to do in the remaining time left to him, that it's not just a goodwill or a farewell tour, if you like. And if the opinion polls for Labour were to continue to plummet, then I think there would probably build up in a matter of weeks a mood saying, well, you better get it over with because it's clearly something which is costing Labour with the voters.
We shall see. Adam, thank you very much indeed. Well, Adam was talking about polls there. Sky News has carried out its own exclusive poll today, and so far we've spoken to 116 Labour constituency party chairmen and women, and we've been asking this simple question: should Tony Blair resign now? 29% of them said yes, it is time for him to leave now. 46% said no, they wanted to stay in Downing Street at least for now, and 25% said they didn't know or they didn't really want to comment. And the other thing we asked these constituency chairs was, who would they want to succeed Mr Blair as Prime Minister? This should put a smile on Gordon Brown's face in Scotland tonight. A huge majority, almost 2/3, 63% said Mr Brown should take over. David Miliband came in second with 6%, the only other substantial vote at all there, and 25% said they didn't know or they didn't want to comment on it. Well, let's bring in Ed Owen, who was a special advisor to Jack Straw and knows all about the workings of these grand corridors of power. Ed, what do you make of that little poll going around the constituencies there? Is that pretty much what you'd have expected?
Yeah, it's not a great surprise, really. It's probably pretty much where I think it would have been. I think there's no denial of the fact there is this big debate going in the Labour Party about Tony's future and where he should go. I think that's probably about where I'd have thought it would come out.
And did you get the feeling at the end of today's statements from both Mr Blair and Mr Brown that everybody was much the wiser, much the clearer and much the relieved?
Well, I think it's provided a bit more clarity. I mean, Pete, there were lots of people who felt that Tony needs to be more clear about when he was going to go. He's provided that now. He's going to go next year, and I think that it won't satisfy everyone. I'm not going to pretend that, but it provides some clarity. Gordon Brown has backed the Prime Minister on that, and it surely is now time. It may not be perfect for everyone. It's now time we all got to get together and look forward and get on with the real business, which is running the country.
Easier said than done, though. I mean, you were more than just a fly on the wall at a lot of these meetings. You must have seen Mr Blair and Mr Brown side by side. I mean, they clearly had a humdinger of a row yesterday, and not for the first time, one assumes.
It's fair to say the creative tension has been part of that relationship for some time, I think it's fair to say. Yeah, I mean, politics throws up very different personalities. Tony Blair and Gordon Brown have been absolutely integral to the whole new Labour project and the success of the Labour government over the last 10 years and the Labour Party in opposition before that. But of course, they're different people. They come from different perspectives. And they are both towering figures. Of course, there's going to be disagreements. I think we all need to, in the Labour Party, we all need to retain a degree of perspective that they're both vital, or both have been vital. Tony's now saying he's going to move on, and I think, as your poll says, most people in the party would like Gordon Brown to take over.
When you were in those meetings, I mean, you're saying they were very big, charismatic figures, big men who fill a room.
Yeah, sure. Towering figures, both of huge intellect, both with profound views about the future of the country, most of which were together as one, but of course there are disagreements. I mean, politics is about internal debate as well as external debate.
So are we unnecessarily concerned about the fact they're bound to rub each other up the wrong way then?
No, I don't think there's ever been, well, there certainly hasn't been any government where the key figures in that government agree on everything. In many ways, I think this government is probably more united on policy issues, the substantive policy issues, than probably most of its predecessors. So I think we all need to take that into account.
Then it seems a shame for the party that it's rather allowed this to cloud everybody's judgment.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, and I think most people who are driving home from work behind me now will have probably looked at what's been going on the last few weeks with bewilderment. That the Labour Party is doing this to itself, and hopefully, after today, we can now come together and look forward. That's what I hope.
But, I mean, is that realistic, though? I mean, you've been in meetings over the years, you know how they really just go and put this to one side and say, right, we're not going to talk about the leadership for another year, we're just going to get on with education, foreign affairs, health, whatever?
Well, it's clear that, obviously, Gordon Brown is an impatient man. I mean, he's and
it must feel a bit like Prince Charles, doesn't he?
Well, your description rather than mine, but an impatient man. He's got profound ideas about the future of the country. Tony said he's going to stand down, and as he acknowledged today, he, of course, himself has had questions about when Tony moves on. We've now got a degree of clarity of that. I hope, I think everyone, most people in the Labour Party would hope that this provides sufficient clarity for Gordon and Tony, for the rest of the Cabinet and the rest of the government, to now put their focus on where it needs to be, which is the real issues about running the country.
I mean, in a way, you seem to be suggesting the party's pretty lucky to have two big figures in it that could hand over to each other.
Yeah, it doesn't always feel like that as we stand here discussing these sort of issues, but we are, and we have been immensely lucky that we've had such two great figures that have been so important to the success of this government and the success of the Labour Party over the last decade. We should take, there should be a great deal of gratitude from the rest of the party that we have that. And hopefully these minor issues over the last few days, we can move on.
But you do wonder, don't you? I mean, there's a lot of talk about a refreshing transition, renewal and so on. Gordon Brown's been in there working as hard as Tony Blair for nearly 10 years now. Is it really going to be a refreshing, renewed change and great transition to something new?
Well, Gordon Brown is as much an architect for the last 10 years as Tony Blair, of course. A new personality will, of course, bring a new approach. A new leader will bring a new approach. I'm not going to say, of course, it's not going to be radically different. It's not going to be complete change, but there will be changes. And it seems to me that is probably good for the government. It's good for the party, and we'll have to wait and see what they'll be.
Good to have a bit of optimism at the end of a difficult day for Labour. Thank you very much, Ed Owen. Well, you've been discussing Blair's departure yourself on our Sky News blog today, and here's a few of your thoughts. Esther in London writes in to say, it's shameful to see Mr Blair being harassed from office. Mr Brown and his supporters seem to think they have a right to take over. Kev in Chester writes, Labour know they need to. The Middle England vote and any lurch to the left will result in a return to opposition. Patricia comments, Tony Blair's departure could see the last nail in Labour's coffin unless they do a massive U-turn. Derek writes, where do the voters fit in? It's a bit of a cry from the heart. Once you've voted for them, that's it. Finally, this from Dave in Slough. I'm thoroughly enjoying the spectacle of Tony beginning his slide into history. Hopefully, Labour will fall apart, ushering in about 20 years of somebody else. Well, if you'd like to join in, please go to sky.com/news and just look out for that link to my Live at 5 weblog. We're going to be reading out some more of your comments later in the show. Right now, though, it's time to remind you of the top stories on Sky News at 6. And Tony Blair has confirmed this afternoon that he will step down within the next 12 months, but refused to set an exact date. Speaking on a visit to a school in North London, he said he'd give more details at a later stage. The Prime Minister criticised his party, apologising for the rife speculation about his departure. He said it hadn't been Labour's finest hour, adding that he wanted to get on with his duties. Meanwhile, the man seen as the most likely person to take over at Downing Street has given the Prime Minister his support, but Chancellor Gordon Brown acknowledged that he'd had questions about the leadership. Well, coming up after the break, all the sport with John Desborough, including the very latest on the race for cricket's county championship, plus a rude awakening for Michelle Wee in her first European Tour event.
The weather for you this afternoon. Fine, pleasant day for most of Britain and Ireland.
Stay with Sky News. Still to come.
Some very, very sketchy details reaching us. We believe that a plane has crashed into the World Trade Center.
From the world as it was to the present climate, a special program looking at how life has changed in the 5 years since 9/11 begins our 5th anniversary coverage. Sunday at 8, only on Sky News.
Knowing what keeps a plane in the air ensures our cars stay glued to the road. The Saab 9.3 Sport Wagon. Saab, move your mind.
What happens if your business model changes every 4 hours? By considering what might change tomorrow, our insurance is more relevant and secure today. Zurich, because change happens.
Be a high rate saver. Just invest a little money and you know it's gonna go real far. Do yourself a favor. So deposit every month and take advantage of our AER. It's much better than your savings jar.
Save monthly for a year and get 7% with a Halifax regular saver.
Sportsline on Sky News, sponsored by The Sun.
Cricket to start with tonight. The world's governing body has named a date for Inzamam ul Haq's disciplinary hearing. The Pakistan captain faces charges of ball tampering and bringing the game into disrepute following the forfeited fourth test at the Oval. ICC chief match referee Ranjan Madigali will chair the hearing on September 27th and 28th. England have been preparing at Trent Bridge for the fourth match of the NatWest one-day series against Pakistan. Despite pulling out of next month's Champions Trophy, Marcus Trescothick is staying with the squad for the rest of this series. The selectors have got to decide whether to give someone else a chance in the remaining two matches. England 2-0 down in the five-match series.
Marcus is a very experienced and very good one-day player. So it's a selection issue we'll be discussing this evening, and you'll know at the toss tomorrow.
How would you describe Marcus's mood today? I mean, as I say, he looked pretty cheerful, and it just looked like training business as usual for him.
Yeah, sure. Look, I mean, it's obviously that it's been a tough time for him, and he's working through a few issues off the field. But he's never changed in the amount he's contributed to the England dressing room, and I don't expect that'll change in the next few days, and I don't think that'll change over the next few months.
In the race for the County Championship title, Sussex have put the pressure back onto Lancashire after a narrow victory over Kent. Chasing 161 for victory, Sussex got there with just a couple of wickets to spare. The win takes Sussex 19 points clearer of Lancashire. Sussex have one match left to play, Lancashire have two. Pedro Mendes could return to action this weekend for Portsmouth in the Premiership. He was knocked unconscious by that infamous challenge by Ben Thatcher. He says it's time to move on, and he's confident the incident will not affect him.
I feel okay. I just want to move on. When something like that happens to you, you just want to forget it as soon as possible. That's why I asked the doctor to get back train as quick as possible, because if you stay at home, you're only thinking that, and the people ring you, how are you, keep. You know, the subject is always there, right? So we just went back to training, just get back to your life, feel happy, because I'm happy playing my football, so that's what I wanted. And so everything is fine.
Michael Owen's second knee operation has gone extremely well, Newcastle say, and he can set his sights on a return to action. The England striker ruptured his cruciate ligament during the match with Sweden at the World Cup. There were fears that he'd miss the entire Premiership season. There's a three-way tie after the opening day of the European Masters Golf at Cran-sur-Sierre. England's Anthony Wall had a round of 66 to put him 5 under par. One of the highlights was this, a 20-foot birdie at the third. Also on 5 under, another Englishman, Robert Coles. He's one of the players in danger of losing his European Tour card. Also at 5 under, David Carter, but not such a good opening round for Michelle Wie, playing in her first ever European Tour event with the men. She's 7 over after an opening round of 78.
I didn't really have my rhythm today in my short game, but hopefully it'll come back to me tomorrow.
Obviously so much attention on you at this tournament. When you're not playing well, how difficult was it out there?
Well, my playing partners were very supportive of me, which is very nice. It was hard out there, but I grinded it out, and I still have tomorrow.
Rob Andrews says there's still time for England to mount a successful defence of the World Cup in France next year. Andrews started his new job as England's new elite rugby director today.
We've been unlucky with injuries. We've obviously had a lot of retirements, and certainly I think the other issue which has to be addressed is that the world game has moved on since the 2003 World Cup. The England model of 2003 was absolutely perfect for that time. Great team, great leadership, they won the World Cup. The movement from there to now hasn't been very smooth, and now we've got to fast forward that process, and that's what we'll be trying to do in the next 12 months.
Finally, Marion Jones says she's ecstatic about being cleared of using the banned blood booster EPO. Her B sample has proved negative. The A sample, the triple Olympic champion gave at the US Field Track Championships in June, reportedly showed the presence of EPO. Jones maintains she's never taken performance-enhancing drugs. That's Sportsline. A little bit more in about an hour's time.
Sportsline on Sky News. Sponsored by The Sun.
Missed. As seen by Qatar Airways passengers, your 5-star airline.
Lots of sunshine around today and a little bit of fair weather cloud as well. This is showing up on the visible picture, mainly over northeastern areas and parts of Scotland. Top temperatures, 23 degrees Celsius down in the south, that's 73 degrees Fahrenheit. But for many of us, it's been a fairly chilly sort of day with temperatures just in the late teens. Well, as we go through the rest of this evening and overnight, we'll find that much of that cloud will melt away. And as it melts away, we'll find that temperatures drop right back to probably around 5 or 6 degrees Celsius in some inland areas. So low enough for a touch of ground frost, possibly even air frost over parts of Scotland. Overnight, we'll also find that out towards the east, it remains quite breezy, down towards the south as well. But Friday, in essence, is going to start off dry and bright, high pressures in control, keeping things nice and calm and settled. See the rotational winds in a clockwise direction. So sunshine again tomorrow. Temperatures similar to today, probably feeling a little bit warmer out towards the east and rising a little bit higher over parts of London and the southeast. More in the way of cloud down towards the southwest. It'll be breezy there as well. By the time we get to Saturday, well, here we do get an increase of cloud across parts of Ireland. That cloud bringing in some patchy rain. That's going to work its way gradually up towards western parts of Scotland. But for the bulk of mainland Britain, it's going to be another mostly fine day with temperatures reaching around 19 Celsius, that's 66 Fahrenheit.
The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
Gorgeous. Gorgeous makes effort look effortless. Gorgeous can't be ordinary, even if it tries. Gorgeous is worth it.
People of Britain, challenge Churchill to give you a better home insurance deal.
Home insurance?
Oh, yes.
OK. Can you guarantee to beat the renewal price on my home insurance?
Oh, yes.
Can I make a claim without filling in any forms?
Oh, yes.
Can I have your autograph?
Oh, yeah, all steady. Come on, homeowners, challenge Churchill.
Yes.
If you haven't claimed for 3 years, we guarantee to beat the renewal price for your home insurance.
See how much an RAC motor quota could save you. For a tailored quote, call 0800 850 580 now. What's more, with only 35,000 car insurance policies including RAC roadside cover left, now's the time to join.
That's your home insurance application almost finished.
So that's everything I want covered?
No, it doesn't work like that.
Sorry?
It doesn't work like that.
Doesn't work like that?
No, it doesn't work like that.
Well, I mean, how does it work then?
Well, not like that. You want your cash covered at home?
Yes,
well,
please.
It doesn't work like that. What about your credit cards? You want them covered?
Yes, of course.
It doesn't work like that.
So, things that I expect to be covered as standard aren't.
That's exactly how it works.
Thank you. Oh.
The door doesn't work like that.
That works like that.
At Nationwide Building Society, our home insurance covers more as standard, and you could save over £100. Nationwide, proud to be different.
It's easier than you might think to be in exactly the wrong place at precisely the wrong time. A brand new series of Seconds from Disaster uncovers new evidence behind some of the world's most infamous tragedies. Tuesday at 9 on National Geographic Channel.
Very good evening from Westminster. Let's take you through the top stories here on Sky News at 6. Tony Blair has now confirmed that he will step down within the next